Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I've never visited this board, so excuse any errors I make regarding board culture. Here is a story that is currently happening to me. I'll give a little background and then go Greentext. My buddy David has 800 acres near Galena, Alaska. We're up here building onto his house and fishing the nearby rivers on our off days. We're about 15 miles back on a gravel road that goes further onto the Bureau of Land Management. There are a few logging trucks a day on the main road, but basically no traffic after the sun sets. The first day we got here together in my Tacoma 4x4. We unscrewed the plywood off the windows, and brought our bags onto the porch. Got his generator started up and unlocked his various outbuildings. The air was stale and a little rank, like a dead cat. Opened the side door to the kitchen. Opened the back door of the cabin and the windows that you could open. Didn't go upstairs, just let the place air out. Sat down on the porch to rest and quench our thirst. It's only been in the low 60s, but the plywood was heavy. We sat there and planned our remodel, generally shot the shit, happy to be here. He fiddled with his bait and tackle and I admired the view from the front porch. Now I'm not really a ghost, or spirit, believer, but I saw something last weekend. It's real quiet and there was a lull in our conversation. Then out of the corner on my eye I saw somebody walk out the open kitchen door. I rotated in my seat to see who was there. I barely saw the guy turn the corner towards the back of the house towards the forest.
What the fuck? Did you see that motherfucker?
I did, dude. Who the fuck is that? David runs out to his truck where he has a Mossberg 590A. It's buried deep in our knock boxes and we had a bunch of shit to unload to get to it. We just throw shit out of the truck till we get the box open. We decided to search the rest of the house first, scattergun in hand. We go upstairs. We looked into the 2 bedrooms, under beds and everything. Nothing, no sign of squatters, animals, nothing. We both affirm we saw a little man with no shirt walk out of the kitchen door to our left from the main porch. We then went towards the back forest. The house and the pad they built it on has a thick gravel base right up to the forest. The forest floor is a thick mat of leaves, needles and duff and hard to track in. We looked all around and found no tracks. With the sun going down and all of our shit exposed, we decided going further into the forest was a bad idea. We both go back inside and close all of the windows, unpack our tools. Set up our gear in the lower 2 bedrooms. We regroup in the kitchen and start guessing who that was. Was it a squatter that was living elsewhere on the land and heard us opening up the plywood? Thief? Animal? Either way, we're 2 bad-ass carpenters with guns and not afraid to throw down with some little fuck. We both went to bed. The next day we started setting up our tools and saws under tarps. We had the shotgun on a sawhorse nearby. Unloaded table saws and miter saws, setting up sawhorses. Getting all the blades adjusted and going through the lumber he has on site. We brought cement to pour a post and pier foundation for his addition. We unloaded that and decided to go fish in a river about 300 yards downhill from us. He caught 2 trout right off that bat and I caught one about 20 minutes in. It slowed down after that and we hiked further upstream. That's where we heard rustling across the stream from us. It could have been any number of animals, so we stood sharp. We fished there for about 2 more hours and Dave started gutting the fish we had. We both head up to the house to wash up and fry some fish. After the last few bites of fish go down, Dave stands up at the table. He says he left his benchmade down there where he was gutting the trout. He grabs a flashlight and heads down there. He said he looked for the rock with the fish guts on them. Said his knife was there, but the fish guts were gone. He half jogged back to hide being scared. Later that night, right after we both go to our bedrooms and shut off the lights. In the total silence, I hear footsteps on the second story. I think maybe an animal or squirrel snuck up there. Try to ignore it. It gets more frequent, with the steps going away from me towards the staircase. Dave calls out loudly.
Is that you up there?
No, I answer now to my bedroom door. We both open our doors at the same time and step into the main room. We bumped off of each other in the dark and both looked at the upper staircase. I saw what looked like a small boy, but his face was almost featureless and his eyes seemed pitch black in the low light.
Who the fuck are you?
The figure slowly steps to the railing like he was going to answer us. Instead, he let out an incredibly loud ear-ripping screech, like what you imagine a T-Rex would sound. It was so loud I covered my ears and stumbled to the floor in the dark. It was so loud it disoriented me. From the ground I look up at the second floor just in time to see it run back into the bedroom. Dave ran past me with his Mossberg in hand. Dave ran to the top of the stairs and turned the hall light on. He then ran straight into the bedroom and out of my sight. At this point I am beyond scared and almost physically shutting down. Like heat stroke or hypothermia. I knew that those gunshots meant that Dave may have just killed somebody. Dave reappears at the top of the staircase.
He jumped out of the window and ran into the forest. He's like a deformed midget. His back was all fucked up and he was on his hands and knees.
What? Did you hit him? If his legs are fucked up, how did he run away?
I don't know, but he jumped out and ran into the fir trees.
We both went out the back door and turned on the exterior lights. There was no blood on the gravel, the smell of burnt powder was still in the wind. Was he up there all day?
He must have been. He probably snuck up there while we were working.
So why would he go up there? Anything of value?
Fucking nothing. Old blankets and pillows.
Dave, do you have your game cam?
Yes, it's in the truck.
He goes out to his truck, while I watch from the front door. Again, the enormous sound shatters the night. I imagined that the sonic crowd control weapons you hear about would feel like this. I instinctually covered my ears and let go a little pee into my boxers. Dave had dropped his gun and keys out of shock. He jumped into the Tacoma and locked the door. Keys and shotgun on the ground outside of his truck. I close the front door and stare at Dave through the window. He can see behind the house and I can't. His mouth is agape. Figure fuck this. Run out towards the truck, grab my gun, grab keys and beat on the window for Dave to open up. He turns to me as white as a ghost and opens the door. Frankly, I'm too afraid to look up towards the back of the house and just rush back to the door with Dave in my arms. I slam the front door and start locking all doors and windows. Dave is pretty much in shock. What did you see? What did you see? Dave swallows deeply and says,
It was a stretched out dead guy that roared at us.
He then rolls over and barfs on his floor. I am really starting to panic and experience tunnel vision. I never knew what that meant until that moment. I give Dave a rag and we sit on the couches. Who the fuck was it, Dave? A dead guy?
It looked dead and ashy, but it made that noise, and then made a scary face when it saw me. Its face moved into an evil shape.
Let's leave, dude.
I can't leave all my tools here.
Let's drive into town and get a motel then?
Okay.
We grabbed our phones and wallets and the Mossberg. Dave insisted on setting up the game cam before we left. He wanted it on the front door, but I said let's put it out back on a tree to see if this thing comes back. We put up the cam on a tree directly behind his house under full gun coverage. We then jump into the Tacoma and peel away from the house. We drove back into town, but everything was booked, so we slept in the truck. In the morning after breakfast, we drive back to his place. We pack up all of our tools as quickly as we can. We screw the plywood back up. Then with the engine already running, I go retrieve the game cam. I didn't get to download them until today when I got back home. I'm pretty sure what we saw was that little man in the center and a little left of the tree. It only took 2 pictures. Here is the other one. For some reason the timestamps are totally wrong too. The date is right, but the time is off by about 13 or 14 hours.
When the midget shouted, or when you got inside the car, was there any pungent stench, like rotting animals?
No. I clearly remember the smell wafting up my nose when we removed the plywood from the windows. It wasn't a wet smell, more like a dried out rat or cat smell if you know it.
In all the time you spent there, did you felt awkward, as in you were watched, or followed, either inside the house or the woods?
After the first day when we saw a figure pop out of the side door, we were both fully on edge. This isn't something that I've ever seen or felt the need to talk about. I was sun-tense, my neck was sore for 2 days after we left. I felt drained from being in that state of awareness for that long.
Try talking to David about this. See if he remembers something.
He's convinced it's a hairless bear with mange. That the screeches were a roar. He think the webcam caught a hairless bear. I'm no bear expert, but wouldn't it have shit all over the place? Fucked shit up with claw marks and stuff? Anyways, the next neighbor down is a retired army vet. He says it's probably a sick bear. But he also said he hears what he described as incredibly loud, monkey howls, from up in the trees around his lake on some summer nights. He also told us he saw a mountain lion that was almost completely black, that was by his estimation, an impossibly long 13 feet from nose to tail. We are going back this weekend with dogs and more friends. Alaskan op checking in. There is definitely something in the woods up there. I don't know what I'd call it, but look for yourself. I'm dumping all of my game cam pictures and a few time-stamped pictures too. I'm a little shaken up, so I may post these and then go calm down for a while and have a few beers. We got up there around 7 p.m. and set up the game cam right off the bat. It was only 60 degrees our first night back, but we were all sweaty from unpacking. We removed the plywood off of only 2 windows downstairs and fired up the generator. We brought 2 dogs, a 2 million candle power spotlight, earplugs, 2 motion detector alarms and 1 other friend named Lonnie. We also brought a shotgun, 2 pistols and Lonnie brought a .308 rifle. We talked about the last time the whole drive up. Lonnie was unconvinced. We cooked some hot dogs and mac and cheese for dinner. We threw on the headlights and unloaded the truck. We moved our shit into each room, and kept all of the doors closed. We all can smell a whiff of smoke in the air and maybe a dead animal nearby. We set 1 motion detector up on the driveway and so we knew if somebody else came in behind us. The other one we set up on the back side of the house not far from the game cam. The dogs set the driveway one off, setting us all into a tizzy, but we saw nothing there with the spotlight. We finally closed up the doors and windows around 9 o'clock. We drank beer in the upstairs bedroom together since this allowed us a raised view of the front and back of the cabin. Mainly Lonnie drank. Dave and I nursed our beers and kept working the spotlight instead. Lonnie drove in from Stevens and was tired. He went to bed and closed his door, snoring shortly thereafter around 10:30. Both dogs were in the main room on the first floor. Dave and I talked about me posting here, and how he still thought it was a juvenile bear with mange. The generator makes so much noise, you couldn't hear a car driving up, much less a person. We are mainly listening for the motion detectors, like the sound you hear when you walk in a 7-Eleven, or the dogs barking. I have my phone already in camera mode in my pocket. Feel like a dorky Ghostbuster and think maybe we're being silly. We start talking about the foundation we need to pour and other plans for the remodel. I am still on edge from being here again, and at this point I am leery of sleeping alone here. Dave is almost passing out and decides to take the upper bedroom where we are drinking. I go down to the second bottom bedroom to let Dave sleep. I can hear Lonnie snoring as I close my door and brace it with a chair. I have a loaded 9mm and a flashlight by my bed. After one of the dogs whimpers, I move the cold XD and the flashlight right into bed with me from the nightstand. A little before 1, still awake thinking. I started to worry if we were summoning this thing. Would our cameras and motion detectors call forth something we never really wanted to see? Images of the small boy-sized thing ran through my dreams when I finally fell asleep. In the morning we made coffee and started digging and forming for our concrete pour. Nobody heard any barks or telltale alarms from our motion detectors in the night. The dogs seemed relaxed and laid in the sun nearby most of the day. We worked till about 1 p.m. before breaking for lunch while we were eating. The motion detector goes off. We can see both dogs and there is nothing in front of the electronic eye. Around 3, both motion detectors went off around 3 p.m. The dogs seemed bothered, so we weren't either. We finished up our forms and got all of our tools ready for a pour in the morning. After that we ate tacos and sat on the porch till about 8:30. We left the dogs outside and came in when it was still light outside. I felt I had made it halfway through, like I was halfway to erasing what happened last time. If nothing happens tonight, I can forget all that happened before. I told Dave I regretted not having a way to view the game cam. Secretly I am glad I couldn't see the pictures while we were still out there in the middle of nowhere. I showered, and was too on edge to even relax. I felt a deep sense of dread. A dread that almost overpowered me at some points. I leaned on the silence of the dogs and detectors for strength. I've been in 20 fights in my life and am considered a tough guy in my circle. But I was too afraid to even look outside at dusk. I silently hoped for nightfall to obliterate my ability to see what was outside. We each showered one by one. We all sat in the main room of the house and talked about the concrete we were pouring in the morning. The plan is to pour the concrete and let it cure for a few days while we go back home. Then come back in a few days to pull the forms. With no cement mixer, this would probably take us 6 to 8 hours tomorrow. Either way, I wasn't planning on sleeping here after tonight. The next 30 minutes I spent closing doors, cabinets, curtains, windows, anything. The dogs quietly sat on the porch out front, the generator hummed along. Everything was going to be okay. Lonnie turned in first, no snoring tonight. I made my way to my room and pushed the dresser against the door. My only vulnerability was one window about 5 feet of the ground. I eased into bed for the night, gun on the nightstand. Slept till around 2 or 3 a.m. when I thought I heard a long car horn honk. I listened again to it, but no other noises came and I chalked it up to a dream. We awoke at 5:30, made coffee and started mixing concrete. We finished at 11 o'clock. We packed tools, and left enough hand tools to strip the forms. Gathered all of our trash and shut down the generator. Around 1 o'clock we were ready to go. I went around the back of the house and retrieved the game cam. I notice all kinds of dead bird parts near the camera. This gonna be good. JPEG. I thought that was strange enough that I took pictures with timestamps. As we drove out the rough dirt road, I was so thankful nothing had happened. We barreled westward down the highway and got home around 3 o'clock. I eagerly unpacked the game cam first and went inside to view the pictures. I was so anxious I forgot to power up the cam before plugging it into my computer. When the pictures finally loaded, I viewed them and my stomach started churning acid. By the time image 0027 opened, I felt a dull ache from my intestines up to the marrow of the bones in my arm. There was that ex-moss tree-shaped little boy I saw atop the staircase that first night. I still haven't shown David these and I don't really want to. I don't know what it is, nor do I want to know. All I know is that I'm never going back to Galena again. This image was white just as it appears. Are dogs setting off the game cam chasing something? More of dogs. Last post, there was another pile of bird parts.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.